Hello, welcome back to another Pen Talk. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for joining me on my exploration of the wide world of pens. And yes, we're starting with a package, a FedEx package. A FedEx package that I received from Japan based on an eBay purchase. In fact, actually 5 pens on eBay that I bought. We'll go into details as to why I did that. The package was opened, I assume for customs, so I opened it up just to ensure that everything was there that I had ordered, and I found that was the case. A lot of people talk about customs and shipping and delivery, but this came very, very quickly, which this is the second buy from this particular eBay seller. And there he lists 4 used pens. Country of manufacturers, all Japan, and the customs value is $56.21. So the pens were not as well protected as I would like. Just a lot of bubble wrap. But thankfully they all arrived okay. And like I said, I immediately had to check them out when I saw that the package had been opened. It's always good to get a little bit of note there, even though it's kind of a generic note. So there's the eBay ID for this seller. There's an email address if you want to contact him. It's a picture of him and his family. And one of those like codes that you read with your phone. So we're going to look at these pens. They changed the approach and the angle. They're all in plastic bags, and all the plastic bags were numbered. And that number coincides to the number on the auction. So I have here a platinum. This is another platinum. This is elite. This is just a Pilot Custom. I'll see if I can figure out when it was made. And here's a desk pen. So that's what I have. We're going to look at each of these in detail. I think this was a great deal. So I got 5 pens with 14 and 18 karat gold nibs from Japan. So immediately there's a expectation of a level of quality in the pen. And the total delivered price was a little bit over $100. To me, that's amazing. People talk about, should I get a gold pen? Should I do this? Should I do that? The Elite is one of the collector pens, Grail pens. Doug loves his. We're going to explore these pens later in the video, each pen individually. I will write with most of them and explain to you some of the challenges that I see in buying like I do buy. Part of the thing is I did buy a platinum pen from the same seller with a coarse nib, and I loved it. But it did take me a fair amount of effort to clean out all the residual ink left in it. Now it writes great, and I love it. So when you buy this, there is no free lunch. There are no unbelievable bargains. But if you're an intelligent shopper, if you know what you're willing to do to bring a pen into good working order, and you know what good working order means to you, then I think there's incredible buys to be had on eBay. So we're going to start with this Pilot Elite. We'll show you the eBay listing. We'll show you the price that I ended up paying for this pen. And yes, this seller charges $25 for shipping for one pen. But if you buy multiple pens, the shipping gets spread out over all the pens. Here's an example of how that is done. So why is this pen now in my hands? Because I don't have a Pilot Elite. Doug raved about his. He had a medium nib and this is not, so that's one difference. The cap just pulls off and you get a nice resistance. And you see that nice platinum nib with that crescent opening there at the bottom. Not necessarily that's there for. And it is just a Pilot Super Quality. So it's not marked as a gold nib, which is interesting. This posts very well. It's designed. It's an extremely well designed small pen. And yes, it's a pocket pen, but it's also it's a clip on it, so you could put it in your shirt. And because it's so short, it fits nicely in any type of shirt pocket. So what do I do when I first get a pen like this? Well, obviously, I take it apart. Yeah, that's, I don't think any converter fits in that, and there's a ring that fell off, so I'm going to be careful about that. So I have my syringe. I have my little jar of cleaning solution that I mix up myself. And we're going to see what the flow is like. We're going to see if there's any ink, residual ink left in there. The flow right offhand feels pretty good. And there is a fair amount of residual ink left in there. So this is going to take a lot of flushings, which is what I had to do with the President pen that I had. And I'm going to be doing this with all of my pens. And then we're going to ink them up and write with them. Pen had more ink in it than I expected. That clear solution is now quite dark. But I think we have good flow, finally. I did add some ammonia to this solution. It's interesting that the major flow, when I'm flushing, is coming out of that crescent at the bottom of the nib there. So I'm still going to let this soak. I want to make certain it's totally clean. I didn't let the platinum soak long enough and therefore needed to re-soak it. And I'm going to do this with all the other pens. No need to watch the process 4 more times. So you may ask, Chris, what do you use in your special cleaning sauce? And I use Mr. Clean. How could you not use Mr. Clean? So we put a little squirt in there. And those of you who know me, I'm not into measuring stuff. And I just thought this sounded great. Toughness you can trust, cleaner degreaser. So I would hope that this adds a little bit more cleaning power to Mr. Clean. And again, I put about the same amount of concentrated cleaning solution in there. And I buy clear ammonia, generic brand at my local supermarket. This bottle cost $1. And I put in, like I said, about 2 tablespoons. And ammonia evaporates, dissipates out of the solution over time. So that's my cleaning solution. And it's worked quite well for cleaning hundreds of pens. And I will continue to use it. We're going to use our freshly made cleaning solution for J798, which is this platinum pen, which is basically the same design as the Pilot Elite. When I got this pen, I looked at it and I felt that it was mint. There's a little bit of a blue tinge to that clear feed in the back, but obviously the test is using this syringe and seeing how clean that solution comes out. It takes no pressure to fill this feed with a cleaning solution, and it comes out clean. So this pen is mint. Here's what I paid for it. Great buy. It's definitely one we're going to ink up. This is my cleaning solution after a day of flushing out the Pilot desk pen. So like the Pilot Elite, it had a lot of very dark ink in it. Looks like black. But I'm pretty happy with the flow now. We're going to let it dry out and ink it up. So all these pens are now clean of ink, ready to put some fresh ink in them. And I've had a chance to look them over a little bit more closely. The outside on all these pens was fairly clean. A lot of times you'll get a used pen, it'll be pretty gunky on the outside. I just use a plain cloth rag to take any residuals, oil and dirt that might have been on the outside, but like I said, very minimal amount. One of the things I was surprised about is there's a square end, kind of similar to that Schaefer PFM end of the pen. A nice angle on the top of the cap. Very nicely designed clips on both of these, and very functional clips. A little bit of a spring action there in both of them. Nice cap band there that's really well engraved. And on the one, the 18 karat platinum, which is the nib gold character, has that gold in it. This doesn't, so my guess is this pen's a little bit older or a little bit more well used. If we pull off the cap on this version of the pen, we'll see something also interesting. It has an engraving on it of a person's name. It's the first time I've seen that on this type of pen. And this was also in, like I say, it was in good condition, and also might be a different model because of the way that both of these were very clean, had no ink left in them when I did their flushing. So the Elite is not the top of the brand, is not the top of the line Elite pen. Again, a similar type of gold band there. The cap comes off and feels about the same. That is a steel nib there. And it seems to still be a little bit gunky, so I'm going to have to definitely do some more cleaning to that. Just a round end here at the end of the barrel. And this Pilot cleaned up really well too. Nice flat ends. This is certainly a nice clean design. It doesn't excite me, obviously. It's the nib that I'm really looking forward to. And this desk pen, this cap obviously doesn't belong with the pen because it's a Hero cap, but it does fit pretty much perfectly. So it was an interesting find, something I didn't expect. So this is just a basic desk pen that would have set into some type of receptacle for the desk, and it has the same type of nib, design nib that's in that Elite. And that little crescent there at the bottom, I think, is the breather hole, but then there's also a breather hole back there, so not really certain exactly how that works, but this one also took a lot of cleaning up. So you may say, well, gee, did Platinum copy Pilot as far as this design of a pocket pen, or did Platinum, develop it just because there was a market there, which is what my feeling is? And you're saying, what about Sailor? Sailor made a similar pen. I bought this a number of years ago. It was very inexpensive, and I wanted to kind of collect all the different models of Sailors, so I needed this one in my collection. Certainly not aesthetically a pen that I'm very happy with. That pink is certainly pink. It does have a 14 karat gold nib, and that's a unique nib, but again, we have that little crescent there at the bottom. More of a standard feed on this one. And it certainly is pink, and certainly is a little bit of a, over-the-top design. I never wrote with this. I just, like I say, I kept it to show that Sailor also had a pocket pen. And that clip is certainly a different design with just a folded over piece of metal, but it does work well, which is all it needs to do. So what ink am I going to use in these pens? This is the ink I chose because I'm just in a turquoise mood, and I want a nice bright turquoise. And I have always enjoyed this ink. It's just a clean turquoise. It goes really on the blue shade with just a touch of green. the chromatography, and I did do two, because I forgot I had one, couldn't find it. They're pretty much the same. It's a really clean, pure color, and that's what makes it nice. It flows well, it's fairly wet. So I've spent some time now with this Pilot Custom pen. So the first thought that comes to mind is it's just classic. Clean design, very well executed. Everything works well on it, everything functions well. The cap pulls off, it's just a nice friction fit there. You can hear the click as we go next to the microphone. It fits okay in the hand unposted. Section's a little bit on the small side, but it works for me. And it's a very long section, so you can really move around quite a bit and still feel comfortable. We'll give you those section dimensions. And it posts as well. It clicks into place. So again, very thought out design, very well executed. Certainly a looker, certainly a business oriented design. It is very light. We'll give you those weights. And we'll also give you the lengths of the pen so you can put it in perspective. Now I think we need to put nib to paper. Well, the first thing I'll say is this is a superb nib. It exceeds my expectations, and I had high expectations for this nib. I mean, it's soft. It bounces. It is just smooth. And, you know, you can talk about smooth and you can talk about glass smooth or buttery smooth, but this just has a touch of feedback, which to me is the most perfect feedback I've had in a nib. I've always liked Sailor nibs, and this is certainly one of the best. This is a beautiful everyday carry, beautiful business pen. You know, it's just now unposted because I was hitting the tripod with it. So let's rate this pen. And I'm going to give it a 9.6. 2 checks for the nib. 2 checks for the classic design. And 2 checks for the great build quality of the pen. So for my first pen inked up and writing with from the 5 that I bought, I'm extremely happy. This is exactly what I expected it to be, and I enjoy writing with it. So the next pen we're going to work on is the Pilot Elite. And I've used the same Con 40 converter. This is supposedly the new style. I got it out of one of my vanishing points. I, did this 3 up and down just to make certain that it flushes the feed well. This ring being loose bothers me, and it'll go on either way. But the challenge is if you put it on this, no, it doesn't really go on that way. So this is the way it has to fit on. And the end does fit okay, and it does post okay. I know the converter only holds a little bit of ink. I heard 0.4 milliliters, but it's good enough for what I want to do now. So now that I've inked up the pen and was able to write with it a little bit, let's talk about this pen. So it's called an Elite, but it's basically the same as the E95. The E95 is the newer version of it. This could be as old as the early 60s to maybe late 70s or 80s. It's in very good condition. And like the custom model, that cap just has a great feel going on and off. The pen, technically you could take quick notes with it, but it is very short in the hand, and it's not really designed to be used unposted. And that again slips on. You get that same nice feel, that nice friction fit. So in the hand posted, it makes a nice pen. It's also very light. We'll give you those weights. This section is just absolutely huge. And it is a good size. It's a little bit more diameter than the Pilot Custom that I wrote with earlier. This model is still in production. It comes with 14 and 18 karat nibs. This is that steel nib version. So let's just see how it puts down that Navajo turquoise ink. So this is definitely a fine nib. You can see the obvious difference. This is almost twice the width of this one. Actually might even be an extra fine, but fine and extra fine in the Japanese nibs are pretty fine. It's also fairly dry. And the other thing is this is very stiff. Extremely stiff. Stiff to the point of not in my pleasure place. It has about the same amount of feedback as the medium nib did, so that's nice. I mean, it does feel okay on the paper. And I have to admit that this design is definitely very well thought out, very well executed. And this could also make a great everyday carry. With this drier nib, it's going to write on pretty much any type of paper. So let's rate this pen. And we're going to give it a 9.3. I'm not going to give it a check for the nib because it's nothing to write home about, pun intended. I will give it 2 checks for the very practical design for a small pen, and you notice it's not posted now because I hit the tripod with it. And it gets 1 check, 2 checks for the build. But this is probably not going to make my everyday carry, just because I'm just not a fan of the nib. I can see where I could get to like it, but there's no wow factor to writing with this pen. It's very consistent. Feels good on the paper, and for that fine nib, that's a plus. So we need to compare this now with the Platinum Pocket pen. So unlike Pilot, which makes a number of different converters, this is the Platinum converter, and it's just slightly too big to fit this pocket pen. You can't put this cap on with the converter in place. And if you compare it to a cartridge, you can see the difference in length. It's not significant, but they could have made this cap a few millimeters longer, or they could have designed a slightly shorter converter, but they didn't do that. And this is a cartridge I've had for a while. Could be a couple decades. It's about half full of ink because you do lose ink from these over time. I'm going to try this just as is first. And then if it doesn't work out, I'll flush it and fill it with Navajo turquoise. We need to compare these two Japanese pocket pens because they have so many traits in common. Overall dimensions are almost the same. The weight's almost the same. You know, they all got this large kind of gold element at the bottom of the cap where the cap meets what you might call the barrel. Both of them have spring-loaded clips. This version of the Platinum, the plating is not surviving as well. The other one, the plating is perfect on, so you're going to get some variations like that. The Pilot is in better condition. None of them show any wear, so I don't think they were used that much. If you may ask if caps or parts are exchangeable, no, they're not. The dimensions are just off enough so that they don't work together. The Elite is a slightly larger diameter than the Platinum is, and that makes it for a different size pen. So overall, this nib is an extra fine nib. It lays down a thinner line than the Pilot Elite did. It has almost the same amount of feedback, which is nice, but it's a little bit softer, and it has a little bounce to it, so it's a nicer writer in my hand. It's about the same wetness. You know, this is a Platinum cartridge, and who knows what zinc's in it, and the cartridge was half empty, so it's ink's a little saturated because some water has evaporated over the decades that it's been sitting in a drawer. So let's rate this pen. And I'm going to give it a 9.3, the same as the Pilot. But in this case, I'm going to give it a check for the nib and a check for the build quality and you know, just a general nice feature. And that little inlay there lining up the nib is always a nice touch. I enjoy seeing that in a pen. But it's a little bit smaller and thinner, so therefore it's not quite as a pleasant writer as the Pilot is. But I could get used to this pen because I like the nib a little bit more. So that's how it balances out to that rating. I'm not going to look at the desk pen because that has the same nib as the Pilot Elite in it. And I'm not going to ink up. From what I can look at the tipping material, that's like a fine nib. And considering this one is okay, I'm willing to stick with this one. These pens present an interesting study of, is a gold nib worth it? Because we have two pens which are similar style nibs, a little bit different shaped, but one is a steel nib and one is an 18 karat gold nib. Pens are similarly shaped, similar weight, so it really allows you to evaluate whether gold makes a better nib material based on how it writes. So I make this prediction. If you were to blindfold someone and hand them these pens to write with, and they just had to depend upon the feel of the nib on paper, they would not be able to tell which one had the gold nib. And when it really comes down to it, that's what the pen is for, is to put ink on paper, to do it well, to do it consistently. And both of these put down a fine line. Both of them feel fairly good with a little bit of feedback, but then considering the fine nib, you would expect some feedback. Aesthetically, this version of the Platinum pen I certainly like. I like that little inlay. This nib is bigger. Elite here is in some type of screened-on paint. The top of the cap finial is different between these two pens. Both of them have a spring-loaded clip, which is nice. And like I say, writing, they're more similar than dissimilar. The Platinum pen, I think, is a much better buy and deal because they don't have the following or the mystique of the Pilot Elite or E95S. So therefore, you could probably get the Platinum pen with the 18-karat nib for maybe less than you could get the Pilot pen. It's a good study. It's something that I wanted to do, and that's one of the reasons why I bought these pens, was to be able to compare them. And at the end of the day, it really comes down to your preference. Which one do you like? And you're really not going to change the writing experience depending upon which one you buy. So we've reached the end of this video. A lot of pens were reviewed. Thank you for watching and sticking with me throughout this kind of long video. Zoom in a little bit more to see how that strange ink, and again we're going to say ink is a question mark in this pen. When this cartridge runs out, I'll probably refill it with a turquoise ink or something else. Hopefully you're enjoying your pens and putting some ink on paper and maybe writing a letter, journaling, doodling, sketching. I think all of it is good. I think it's very therapeutic to put nib to paper and to see your thoughts take physical form. So we've reached the end of this video. I hope all of you are staying safe, healthy, and happy. We're going to say bye until the next video. And this nib is okay. I like it.